Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Beautiful, sunny day out here in Oakland, California, where I am. I'm from the Caribbean island of St. Croix. For those who don't know who I am, my name is James Weeks. I'm the author of the book Meditations Across the King's River, African Inspired Wisdom for Life's Journey. I help people with strategies for emotional, spiritual, and financial wellness. To learn more about me, visit my website, acrossthekingsriver.com. Today, I'm very honored to have a special guest with us, um, remarkable healer, uh, visionary, businesswoman, entrepreneur, iyanifa. She loves helping people. She's passionate about her purpose. So I wanted her to bring her on today to share some of her wisdom with you. Iya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Give thanks, Bob. Oh, you made me sound so big.
You are big. You are big. You're like the moon and the sun combined. So,
I receive that. Thank you.
okay, good. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because, as you are aware, 2022 has been a challenging year for so many people, right? A lot of people are struggling with anxiety, depression, overwhelm. I mean, you just name it, just across the board. And so I was wondering if you could just share just some of your journey with us. What led you from where you were? Tell us more about where you were back then, your backstory, and where you are today, and what helped you, and what is still helping you today.
Whew. I have a very colorful backstory to myself, anyway. I am originally from Canton, Ohio, a little town, city, not town, outside of Cleveland. Um, I'm an 80s baby. I have been a gypsy most of my life, just traveling around. I've lived different places, just trying to find my grounding. And I'm discovering literally in this year that I've been really trying to just to get my footing and discover where I'm supposed to be. And that brought me back to the Pacific Northwest after 10, 15 years of just wandering around. So um, I started out. My brother and I are 13 years apart, so in age, and so I was an only child for most of my life. Very creative, imaginative uh, child, which now I know that it was that there were gifts that I had growing up that you know I could see spirit. I would talk to spirit, and my mom. I tell this story all the time. I feel like a broken record, but my mom would always say, "Oh, those are Shannon's imaginary friends." My birth name is Shannon Michelle Kelly King. Right, born in Canton, Ohio, in the late 60s. I'll be 55 this year, which is very exciting, and a little scary. And getting older has been a journey, but um, so I've always been a curious person. I've always wanted to know how things work and why. And I know I drove my mother crazy with the, but why? But why? It doesn't make sense. But why? Even going to church. So my grandmother, Lily Lou Morgan, was a evangelist for the Lord, as I say. That's how she used to say it. So um, I come from a biblical family, Baptist, Pentecostal on one end, and Brethren in Christ, sort of a spinoff of Mennonite on the other end. Plus, I have indigenous roots too. My grandmother was Choctaw Cherokee, and on the other side of my family is Lenape, the Lenape tribe from the Delaware tribe in northeastern Ohio. So I have a mishmash of, but I am very African in my makeup. I actually did what kind of started me on this journey to Ifa was when I don't know, I was in my early 20s maybe. I decided I saw something in National Geographic that said send in your test swab, and they did a DNA analysis, and they discovered that I was like pretty much Nigerian more than anything. I think it was like 89% or something like that. So I started learning taking this journey about my, my genealogy and learning about my ancestry, and decided I wanted to go. And I wanted to learn more about how that happened. Now, fast forward, or rewind, I'm sorry, to college. I actually lived with, for a short time, an auntie. She's like a great auntie. And she was a root worker, and she was a priestess, as I discovered. And she had this room that I wasn't allowed to go into. And, I'm an obedient person. I follow the elders and listen and all that. And so I ended up, she left the door open to the room that I wasn't supposed to go into one day, and she wasn't home. So I didn't go in the room, but I stood in the doorway and I saw pots and dried things hanging from the ceiling. And she had shelves of water and, just all the things that I know now are implements, and tools that you use, to navigate things in your life and spirit, speak to spirit. So all these things just kind of connected me to learn more about myself. And in this process, I ended up, I don't even remember the root story of it, but I ended up going to learning about Iyanla Vanzant. And from the back of Essence magazine, she had an article that said, "Be a spiritual life coach." I didn't know what that was. And it was like a little tiny ad in the back of Essence. When they used to have ads in the back of Essence, they don't do that anymore. Um, and I kept it. And so some years later, I saw a TV commercial, and I was here in Seattle, and I was working for the television station, and um, the Iyanla show. She was started out on Oprah, right? So I started watching on Oprah and following her. So I decided to go to this school, which is really, I don't know, now that I'm super grateful that I did it. But at the time, um, the classes were in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I have so much love and respect for Iyanla Vanzant. She, there's a part of her life that she doesn't really speak about very much. She has a whole institute of training people to deepen your spiritual life. It's like the Master of Spiritual Development, and it's like literally master's degree type. We learned quantum physics. We studied um, meditation and chakras and effective communication. And then we started doing ritualistic type things, like we had naming ceremonies. What does your name mean? And then we started doing work in the very Iyanla way. Like, she's
Wow.
hardcore.
Wow. 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 That's amazing. So question, I want to go back to Iyanla Vanzant in a second, but
Mhm.
I want you to take us back to, you said you were a child and you were seeing these spirits. What was that like for you? And how, at what point do you still see spirits in that way as you did as a child? And go ahead.
Mm. Oh, I was going to say, not in the same way. Well, because I was an only child and my mother was a single parent, I had a lot of time to myself, right? And I would make up these stories. So I thought I was making up these stories in my head and these characters. And then I would see pictures of them at our house. And I started discovering, like, I'm actually seeing these people. So maybe I'm making it up, right? So I went along with the imaginary friend thing for a long time. And my mom would just say, you know, they're just just her imaginary friends. Cause I would freak people out, because I would come to them and be like, so the spirit said, or I wouldn't call it, I forget what I would call it. There was a name I had. And they were just like, this little girl, okay, where did she come from? So when I got older, and then my first experience with death was at 5. My dad's sister passed away from complications from a car accident. And I knew her, but I didn't know her because, I'm 5, I'm a little kid. But I remember her spirit. I remember how spicy and just, she was a very free spirited kind of person, living in the family of, evangelists and deacons. And so I remember her just kind of doing her own thing. But And then at 13, my mother's sister passed away, Annette. And I was close to her. She was more like a sister to me than an aunt. And so she transitioned, and I remember her coming because I was really upset about it because it was the first close person that I had ever, that passed away. And I remember her sitting at the edge of my bed, and there was like a glow around her. And she said, because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping very well. My mom was really concerned. And she was like, "You have to let me go." She was like, I'm good. I'm an angel now. I'm watching over you. And that, at 13, I'm like, okay. And I told my family of the experience. And that same night, I guess she visited some other people in the family who had never really seen or said that they'd seen spirit before. And she, then they believed me. So my grandmother, who was an evangelist, who also had the gift, kind of took me under her wing and made me, she didn't make me, I was her baby. And she would, she was the type to speak in tongues in the house and walk around, hallelujah, just out the blue, and just start talking. And is another story I always tell, is when my grandfather passed away. My grandfather was very old Southern, from Louisiana, Mississippi area. He was from the Mississippi Delta area. And he was pretty oppressive, women stay in the kitchen. My grandmother never worked. She has 6 children. They got married when she was in the, I think, 9th grade. So, but she knew that I had some gifts. And so she just kind of helped me nurture the gifts without telling me that's what she was doing. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, that's what she was doing. She was showing me this, or she was showing me that. And she took me to the Pentecostal church at 13. And you know how they have the altar call that pull you up in front of the church. And the pastor fishbowled me. I was sitting in the audience trying to be small. And he said, "Excuse me, right here, come on up," And so I go up to the front, and he put a cross, anointed my head with oil. And something, and it's interesting that he did it, I'm recognizing he did it over my third eye. And at that moment, I just started crying and speaking in tongues. And it scared me so bad, I never went back to the church or talk to the people. But they pull you to the back and they try to get you to join the church and all that. And I'm 13. And my grandmother was okay with it because it was her church. So she was the person that kind of nurtured that side of me. And so for a long time, I just kind of didn't say anything because, back in the day, voodoo, juju, hoodoo, all that stuff is the devil.
Right. Wow.
But she knew, and I knew that it wasn't.
Wow. So, so looking back at those early experiences working with spirit, and like with all the experience you have now working with people like iyanifa and your journey into this African tradition, Ifa, what advice, what tips would you give to others who feel like maybe they're not in touch with their ancestors, or they want to get better at getting in touch with their intuition? Or what advice, what tips would you share from your experiences? How do we get better at that?
Well, the first thing is to set an intention to do that. Some people just expect, that the clouds are going to open up and they're going to see grandma's face in the cloud like Lion King or something. It's not that way. When I teach about Ifa and I teach about the wisdom of nature, I keep it really practical, because all of my teachers are very like woo woo, very, I say woo woo, that's not the proper word. I'm going to find another word for that. But they're very esoteric. They're very scholarly. I know a lot of really scholarly people that practice African traditions. But for me, it's like, how does this apply to my real life? So, true story, my mother passed away in 2008 after fighting lupus and alcoholism. And about 3 days after she passed away, I was laying in my bed and I kept hearing this, and I'm like, what is that noise? And I look up and there's a hummingbird literally just chilling, hovering outside my bedroom window. And the window was open so I could hear it. For 3 days, this hummingbird would come every morning and just hover. And then it was I can't it was a shaman friend that I had that said something about they had a dream that my mother came to them as a hummingbird. And I was just like, okay. And so it's practical things like that, little signs and symbols. My mother's favorite song was Wildflower by this group New Birth. Now, I have not heard this song, and since she played it on the record player when I was a kid, for like 3 days straight, I got in the car, turn on the radio, that song's playing. I do something, somebody sends me a link, that song is playing. I'm like, okay, these are messages from spirit. This is my mom letting me know I'm here, I'm present, I'm with you. And it made me feel better. You know what I'm saying? It kind of gives you like a comforting, it gave me a comfort feeling. And then there's also, just ways that spirit can show up. If you hear a message, like my grandmother used to always say, when you're connected to spirit and you know that you know that you know, then you really know something. You know that you're divinely connected to spirit. Just trust that you know, right? And I'm like, what? I literally had a mentor of mine say, well, Omi, when you know that you know that you know. And she said it exactly the way with the same cadence. And I was just like, okay, that's Granny speaking to me. And we make it hard. And then sometimes I will actually see her in my dreams. Um, Very rarely do I ever see faces, but I'll see the silhouette or the side of someone. Like my mother and I will, like, if we're walking together, she's right here, but I can't see her because I'm looking forward, but she's right here, if that makes sense. I
It
never
does.
see them square face on.
It does. So I want to share a quote that you shared with me once. Um, and so for those who don't know, in my book, Meditations Across the King's River, I have a chapter on balancing spiritual and financial wellness, right? And in that chapter, there's a little section like I suggested the idea of starting a business as something someone should look into. But in that section, I actually quoted you, you know, and the quote I shared, one of the quotes I shared from you is that when you're working with people, you like to help people to see themselves from a different perspective. And you also said that most people have a spiritual gift that they are in denial of or they're afraid of.
Yep.
Could you talk about that? Why is it that people are afraid of the spiritual gifts that they have?
So many reasons. The devil. A lot of people are scared of the devil, the boogeyman. They figure it's a sin. White supremacy has made African spiritual traditions so demonic. And Hollywood has played into that with all these movies about, I remember sneaking to watch The Serpent and the Rainbow when I was like 10 years old. And it haunted me because I thought that's what it was, right? Um, I have a goddaughter who once said when I first met her, she was like, I'm seeing all these people and they're talking to me and I don't know what to do and I'm scared. And she was like, and my people and my family are showing up and I'm scared. And I was like, why are you scared of your relatives, of people that you know? Like, what is there to be scared of? And I always ask people, have you ever seen a ghost stab someone? Have you ever seen, in real life, have you ever seen a spirit harm someone physically? Now, if you feel a presence of negative energy, you can say, not today, go away. There are ways that you can get it up off of you if you need to, but you can't be scared of what belongs to you. Now, there are spirits that, of course, will give you that feeling of negative energy because they were negative in their life, maybe. But there's no boogeyman. There's nothing to be afraid of. And people talk about hexes and all of that. I just don't. You hex yourself. You know what I'm saying? Hollywood and white supremacy has us feeling like our traditions aren't real and that our gifts aren't real. I have a client that I worked with. She got in a car accident. She hit her head on the windshield, and then she started seeing orbs and lights and hearing things and hearing voices. And she came to me because she was like, I think I'm really going crazy. And they're wanting to put me on all these medications, lithium being one of those, and Xanax and all this stuff. And I said, I did a meditation with her and I asked her some questions. And I said, tell me what happens when you see the orbs. And she said, well, they're usually around in the morning and this, that, and the other. And she described some of the faces that she was seeing. And she said, I think that some of them are my ancestors. And this is a white woman. So I was just like, okay, you know about your ancestors. Okay. They don't usually talk about ancestors like we African people do. So to hear someone talk like that, I was like, okay. And I said, well, how about this? How about you hit your head and you opened up something in your psyche, in your spirit, in your energetic body that is allowing you to see on the other side of the veil, meaning you can see spirit, you can experience what spirit is around you. Those orbs may be spirits that don't belong to you, but you can feel their energy and their light. And um, and I just kind of talked to her about, I said, you might have opened up your third eye where your intuition is really strong and you're seeing, the manifestations of the things that you're talking about, and you're making things happen in your life. And she came back to me 6 months later and said, what you said to me changed my life. I got off all the medications. I started doing meditations, and I started allowing spirit to actually speak to me. And now I can actually understand. So like I said, first thing is to set an intention. Um, I intend to connect with my ancestors. I intend to connect to hear a message from my mother, not mommy, send me a sign. I intend to hear, to be witness to a message or um, something that my mother will say or do that will show up for me. So I'll recognize that it's her. Set an intention. Second thing is create sacred space for them to come. Ancestor altar. Have a little space with, Black people have had ancestor altars in our house since the beginning of time. We all got the granny that has all the ancestor pictures on the wall, or the table with all of the funeral programs, or the table with the candles and the pictures and things. Those are altars. Those are sacred spaces. So if you create an intentional space to be able to connect with your own ancestry, or your own bloodline, and it has to be bloodline. Don't try to communicate with other people's spirits. They don't belong to you. They don't belong to you. Um, and then you have to, after you've set the intention, created the sacred space, then it's time to actually invoke them in and sit in meditation. Because um, prayer is speaking to spirit. Meditation is sitting and listening. And see what vision, like have a little piece of paper and a pen and write down what comes to your mind. The silliest thing, paperclip, I don't know, the color pink, just whatever visuals come into your mind's eye, write those down. And then if you pay attention, you could possibly see a pattern. The things that I was seeing were reminiscent of my mother's mother. She has this brooch that I have of hers that, I see I have it on my altar, but when I see her, she has it on, which I think is really funny. But and so then you sit in meditation and then pay attention to what happens in your dreams. Write down your dreams. There's so many ways to get messages from spirit that are practical, and they're not you sitting in a seance with a circle of witches.
Well,
Calling on other people's spirit. Like call on your own in
right.
your own private time.
So I love what how you always go back to like what's practical and how do we connect to things in practical ways. So I want to ask you this question for those, and I love how you point out that white supremacy and Hollywood has demonized our traditions. So for people who are not at all familiar with African traditions, what would you say it has done for you, or what do you feel, the benefits are for us to learn more about them? What would you say?
Well, if you are of African descent, and what I've heard, and this may or may not be true, I like to believe it, that most of the African Americans that descended here are from West Africa, and so we practice Ifa, Igbo, Yoruba, the Yoruba people, the Fon people, um, but What Ifa has done for me, Ifa has taught me a higher version of myself. Ifa in and of itself means the wisdom of nature. Um, and people think nature meaning going outside and hiking and being in the trees and being cold. No, nature is this glass of water that I have right here is nature. And my name is Omi, which means water. So I started learning about water, how water flows, how water ebbs. I learned that the moon guides the tides of the ocean, which is water. So I noticed that when the full moon comes in, I'm a little edgy or a little, loopy. I feel loopy in the moon's energy and we're made of mostly water, and I started learning about things in nature that aren't necessarily um, going out and hiking or doing outdoor activities. Learning about nature means how nature ebbs and flows with each other, how my plants, if I give them certain nutrients, will grow a certain way or turn a certain color, or simple things. Simple, it's really really simple. And then how nature connects to you. Water symbolizes emotional energy. I am a very emotional person, but over time, Ifa has taught me to learn to balance my emotions. The spirit of Yemoja um, guards my head. For all of you people that know about Ifa, Ifa, and the belief is there is a guardian spirit that walks with you, that shows up as you. I always pray, show up in me, through me, as me, right? So omitosin means my blessings come from the water. So water blesses me. And so it's just that simple, just making all these little connections with things in nature to help you get past all of your own fears and doubts and idiosyncrasies and things. Like, I used to be afraid of the water, and I learned I was either afraid of it or I loved it. I would just jump in head first, or I would be like, it doesn't feel right. But I learned that the spirit of water, because I am such a water person, will call me, and I could drown. I could get enveloped in the energy, the actual energy of water. Same thing with fire people. Be careful around fire. So there's things that they teach you in Ifa about yourself to help you in your spiritual life and in your real life. That's why I try to keep things practical.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Because it's so needed, and I agree with you that they're just simple ways of for people to get in to learn more about this tradition, or have it help them, that are not at all complicated.
Right.
You
And
know,
you can go down the rabbit hole.
you
You
could
go
go down the
really, really
complicated
deep.
road. Yes. So I wanted to go into something that you and I were talking about before we started this live broadcast, and you were talking about setting boundaries, about uh, saying no. Could you talk about that? How, and when I started promoting this talk, it was what, standing in your truth. I think that's what I said.
Mhm.
How, talk to us about that journey. What have you learned about saying no, about setting boundaries that are more firm,
I
and why
used
is that so important?
Well, I used to say that no was my favorite word, and that's when I was learning how to set boundaries. And I was saying no to everything, right? Just to keep me safe. And then I recognized, so boundaries, I used to be, I am a reformed and rejuvenated, people pleasing yes person. I want to make everybody happy all the time. Why? Because I didn't feel worthy to be able to stand up in my as my truest self and say no to things that I didn't want to really do, and I would just do them to make other people happy. And it was draining my life force, literally. Um, I developed fibroids because I was holding on to all this, being angry about saying yes about everything. And so I had to like learn how to, and I recognized that I was just allowing people to just pull and pick at me. And I was saying yes to things that I didn't want to say yes to. And you know what? I just remember, Baba, it is you that was the person that encouraged me to start doing videos of myself just talking about. And the first one I did was about saying no when you, or saying yes when you really want to say no. and
Mm.
the damage that that does, because you're in resistance in your body because you really don't want to do the thing, but you say yes to make someone else happy, and you're stuffing this emotional energy and it turns into weight. For me, it was fibroids. um I'm sorry, I went on a tangent and just lost the whole train of the question. I just remember that you were the person that encouraged me to do that. So boundaries um was a really rough journey for me because I grew up a child of an alcoholic and an only child for a time. And I was my mother's coach, parent. Like I had to parent. And so I grew up really, 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 really trying to please mom because my mother was, I'm a Taurus. And if you know anything about astrology, my mother is a Scorpio. And so the Taurus Scorpio polar oppositeness was real present in our relationship. And I would do things just to spite her, and she would live vicariously through me. So my mother had gifts that she didn't want to acknowledge. And I think she was afraid of for most of her life. And I was like, I see all of it, rainbows and unicorns, and I'm the, and I think she wanted me to be the nice girl, prim and proper. And so I was always raised to please mom and to always be a lady and always make friends and be nice. I was a nice girl. And that led me down a road to destruction where I was saying yes to things and people were taking my kindness for weakness, and I was allowing them to just run over me. And then one day it was just like, you know what? Enough. And it took me to age 50, Baba. It took me to age 50. So you young people out here, start now. Say no, even if you're shaking and you say no. If you don't really want to do something, don't do it. Don't say yes. Um, so creating boundaries has allowed me to be free to be my full self. Because most of the time, when you're in this people pleasing mode, you're trying to get the approval and the external validation from other people. And typically, you're not going to get it anyway, or you're comparing yourself. You know what I mean? You're comparing yourself to people. Like it literally came down, Baba, when I got my initiation in 2020. That's when I made Tepa. But I've been a priest for 12 years. Priest of Yemoja, priest of Orisha. But I finally decided, like at 50, that I had had enough of being taken advantage of. And in Tefa, they told me that it is taboo for me to compare myself to anyone because I wanted to be like Iyama, because that's my girl, that's my godmama. Like I respect her because she keeps part of her, she keeps it black. You know what I'm saying? And she keeps it spiritual and she tells the truth. And she's a little extra, but she'll tell you that. I'm extra. She's extra. But we love her because she's extra. So I wanted to be her a little less extra, but I am not allowed to compare myself or what's the word? Imitate anyone. It is taboo for me to imitate anyone. So I might as well be my damn self and say no to anything that is not me.
Wow.
That was a long answer to a short question.
That's beautiful. By the way, we're open to questions. If you all have any questions you want her to answer or you want more insight on, just send us your questions. If you want questions you want me to answer, I'll answer them too. So I wanted to ask you this question. A lot of people have maybe certain passions and they're thinking about how could they work for themselves? How could they turn a passion into whatever, a business of some type? And I just remember your early stages, just your whole journey of entrepreneurship. And a lot of people, well, they get scared and they get frustrated and the money's not coming at times. And then they start thinking, well, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I shouldn't do this. If it was meant for me, then it would be easier. What advice would you give for people who are trying to transition more into doing things that fulfill their purpose, but also could generate some income?
One, be honest with yourself. Is this something you can really do?
Mm.
you know, are you really committed and passionate about it? the internet and social media makes it look like you could be a millionaire overnight and flying your own planes and all kinds of foolishness, right? Um, but there were times when I was broke as a joke, but I believed that, I, what it is on a very surface level, you have to believe that what you're doing is viable and valuable to someone. Um, those little videos, I made them just because I was bored. And I was just like, I'm going to play around and learn about this new MacBook that I got and, do some videos. I'm going to do some little vignettes. And I stopped doing them. And people were sending me messages like, hey, this is like, I drink my coffee while I'm watching your videos in the morning. Like, you inspire me. You're my inspiration during the day. And, with the saturation of all these new like healers and gurus, and it's a lot, right? You have to kind of sort. But I had a following I didn't even know I had. And I was just screwing around in my bedroom making videos. So, um, and then now I'm learning about how I could make those videos make money for myself. And then I had to like really believe, but you have to believe in what you're doing and what you're saying. Like the things that I was saying on there is because that was my life. I was saying yes to all the stuff I wanted to say no to, and it was making me sick. And I started, how do you know if you're spiritual? What does it really mean? And how to get out of your own way. And then I had an issue with racism, like in my face, and I bawled and broke down. I was in my robe, bawled, and people were I had no makeup on. I looked a hot mess. And everybody was like, that moved me so much. And I was just like, and part of it is the need to please people. And part of it is it heals me to show others how to not do what I did on my journey. So find ways to make money. Have don't do anything for free. Now you don't have to gouge people. Fair exchange. If you are a massage therapist and you want a reading and I can do a reading, I will trade you a reading for a massage in a minute. You know what I'm saying? But you start to build this buzz about yourself. And don't be scared of social media, but use it for a tool, not for your life. And don't lie about who you are. Speak your truth. Like you said, stand in your truth. And find someone who was doing what you would like to be doing, and just have conversations with them, how they do what they do, what their routine is, how they learn about, I used to run from money situations like, now I got to do taxes and pay bills. And it's real interesting because I just want to be creative and heal the world. And I don't want to do any of the other stuff. But you have to get okay with doing the other stuff if you want to go to the next level. Because you could, do QuickBooks on your own, in your own time, which is really easy. Find a way to, and everything that you do in your life has a value. You have to put a value on it and find out what it's worth and market it for what it's worth. My readings are $125. Somebody told me I was lowballing, and I was like, really? It used to be $60. But we're in the time now where it's important and it's valuable, and it's valuable to me, and it helps me live my life. So,
right. No, it's an important point. What I've known, what I've learned over the years is that people who are spiritual and people who are also in artists, like whether it's they're musicians or dance or whatever it is, they tend to not put like a full value on what they do because they're so grateful. Like if someone gives them $5, they're so grateful that they don't really put a premium on their life experience, on what it is that they're delivering. And so to your point is we tend to let's just say we tend to screw ourselves over, right? I mean, that's just, and so like you said, it's about putting more value, and not only, and this whole thing about putting value isn't only like if you're trying to do a business, but just in general, as you interact with people and maybe people leave your life or whatever, or you're trying to reach out to someone and they're not responding back. Well, you have to put a value on yourself that no, maybe they don't see your value, but
Right.
you do. And so you don't have to interact with people who don't appreciate and see your value. So
And
see,
everybody's not for you.
everyone is not for us. And so we
Yeah.
have to know that. We have to be at peace with that. So I want you to talk about this amazing project that you have going on in Seattle that's just like mind blowing. So tell us about this healing, this great vision that you have for this healing center in Seattle, because that to me is amazing, and it's hopeful, and it tells people like what's possible. Because I know, because I've known you for over this year, that if we could go back in time to like when we were talking in Seattle, and someone would tell you that, oh, you would be like, you know, that you would have this, be working in this massive healing center in Seattle. I don't know if you would have believed it. And I'm not sure if back then I would have said, but there it is. It's in your face and it shows us the power of the ancestors. Could you talk about this project?
I didn't believe it when it happened. I was like, wait a minute, did that just happen? Um, so I, in my other life, all my life is linked now. It feels really beautiful to have. Like I used to be the corporate and then I do the spiritual, and now it's all one, which feels beautiful. But I am the executive co-director of Gathering Roots Wellness and Retreat Center. And we we are in the building, surging, growing, learning, healing stages right now. But we were gifted with 78 acres of land that has is just magical. That we intend to build a wellness and retreat center for Black and Brown folks to come out and have some respite and some rest and some fun and some spiritual consciousness and some awareness of nature, and just to have a place for us where we can go and do the things that we naturally do, our own rituals and ceremonies and ancestor retreats, and just, it's I still, even, and it's been through 2 years now, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of healing and a lot of learning, for myself. Like I said, I'm a visionary and a dreamer and an imaginary person. So my official title is, oh, the lead imagination alchemist. We made up these really cool titles for each other. But so there's a team of 6 of us, and a board of 3. We're small in person, but great in what we're doing. We offer online workshops and classes right now. We have 2. We have a comedic yoga class, and we also have um, a workshop about changing your internal compass. This brother does Yaji. Yahi. I can't remember his name, his Instagram name. I was trying to think of his Instagram name, but Faraji is his name. But so we have online classes, and we're soon to be opening our space. So there, on the property, there's a house. It's like a 4,000 square foot house that we intend to let people, rent out for workshops and that. But right now, we're just kind of like in the building restructuring, because we had an idea, we had a dream, and then we had to learn how to pay bills and taxes and when you have a group of powerful people and healers and empaths and babas and ears and together, strong personalities, we had to learn how to relate and communicate with each other, um, and how we best work together. So that's where we are now, and we're very, like, the solidarity in this group it's incredible, and we are learning how to build this thing, as we go. There's land, for a farm and a garden, and we're going to be building art spaces and have yurts for people to come and camp. We are on sacred land. We're on the border of the Muckleshoot tribe, in Auburn, Washington, and it's a dream that I never even imagined, ever thought that would ever happen. And I'm so blessed and grateful. And it's a gift. And so we plan to steward the land as a gift and open it up to people that really own it, because we're just stewarding this land. So um, very soon we'll be able to invite people to come and just do your thing on our land, on our collective
Beautiful. So,
land.
can you tell us the name of that again, and also how people could get in touch with you or the organization? Could you tell us the name again?
It's Gathering Roots Wellness and Retreat Center.
So it's Gathering Roots Wellness and Retreat Center. I'm putting it right here in the chat
Okay.
center.
The best place to find us right now, because we're in a lull right now. We're
Okay.
hibernating and incubating for the spring, but our Instagram is active.
Okay. And
Um,
what is the Instagram handle?
Gathering Roots.
Oh, Gathering Roots. Okay. Something that you said struck me as so profound. Well, when you're on 78 acres, but this notion, like you said that it's hard to believe, it's hard to imagine. And so one of the things as I work with people and just what my own journey has taught me is that when you're dealing with things that are spirit based, all kinds of things can happen that are beyond our imagination. So,
Mhm.
like, as we go to our day to day life, to me, we have to be open to things that we think are impossible and not try to, you know, I guess, lower our vision to fit into a narrow worldview. Could you talk about that?
Well, first I'm gonna say, don't ever lower your vision. Don't ever lower your vision. You can bend it, shape it, mold it into different directions, but never, ever, ever lower it. I, you know, I used to be a shrinking violet, and I would play small. Um, and this year, I'm a life path of an 8. It is not in my makeup to play small. It is not in my makeup to not be a leader and be running something. I can't work for people. This is not my thing. But I'm learning how to work for myself, which is really interesting. um, but there's a video, there's a video that I was promoting last week, and the video is terrible. It's a terrible video, but it's so insightful because you never again, never ever ever block where the messages come from, because you can watch the most ratchetest, craziest, like, and still get a blessing from it. So this drunk uncle is standing on the other side of the fence and he's talking to somebody, and I only got the snippet of it, and then I saw the whole video and I was like, wow. He was like, you're thinking small when you need to be thinking big. Think big, bitch. Think big. And it was just like, think it's small. And just that little message was like, okay, I'm gonna think about this vision as big as I can possibly think about it, right? And in that, I'm like, this is global. We can have sister spaces that, people, it's becoming a network of spaces like this, where if I'm in Costa Rica and I want to have a healing situation going on, or I want to go somewhere just to rest up, to be my full Black self, I can go to Kaiwita and go to, the Kaiwita Inn and stay and have a space that's like this, that's doing healing work all over the world. And since I said that, I've been meeting people from South Africa. I've been meeting people from all over the place that are just like, we want to be doing this thing too. And I'm like, well, Kenya, so for me, I want to be able to, the biggest picture that I can create is to create healing space similar to what we're doing here globally, so that me and all my people can go.
That is fantastic. So I want to ask you this because 2023 is just right around the corner for us. What would be your advice, your tips to people for how to maximize 2023?
That's a big question. Well, right now, we are in the season of death and change, right? My own personal self is dealing with a lot of, I'm losing the mother figures in my life. My grandmother will be 99 in February. She's my last living grandparent. And we thought she had a stroke last week, and I thought we were going to lose her. And it was just kind of like a jolt. Um, so we're dealing with a lot of grief, right? Um, Allow yourself to have grief. Allow yourself to feel heavy. Allow yourself, I give myself, when I'm grieving, I give myself 24 hours to just while out on the feelings, right? I give myself 24 hours to sit in it, wallow in it, eat what I want, be just my full, like, pitiful Taurus the bull, don't talk to me self, right? And after 24 hours, I try to find the joy or the celebration, if it were, because a lot of grief is about death. And my granny, she's still with us. So I'm not going to paint the picture about grief, but she's 99. She'll be 99. She's going to go soon. Um, Celebrating how fiery she was and how she taught me how to be a woman and how she, you know, didn't take any stuff out of people. Now that I'm in this season of living big and standing in as in my truth and being a leader, it's like you have to stand in your truth. Like the name of this, it sounds cliche, but you really have to stand in your truth and in your greatness. So find some joy in the grief and stand in that, right? And then as far as you moving forward, allow yourself to feel your feelings, have a plan, set an intention, talk to your ancestors. And there's a church song, there's an old church song my grandma used to say, call them up, tell them what you want. And it's not like giving a laundry list of, I want a car to this and to this and to this and to this and to this. It's ancestors, open me up to the abundance and prosperity that I see myself living in. Open up the ways for me to be able to be a good business person in community. Open up the ways for community to appreciate my gifts and use me as the tool for whatever you're trying to do. Let me be the spokesperson for whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, ask for not things, ask for the energy or the spirit that you're trying to create in yourself that's going to manifest this in your life.
Wow. That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, we're almost out of time, so I wanted to, thank you for coming to share this wisdom with us. And so, again, for those who are listening, Gathering Roots and Wellness Center, that's how you can learn more about her organization. And so she's a very humble person, so don't be afraid to reach out. She loves helping people. So I want to thank you again, once again, for taking the time out to be with us. And thank you all for joining in. Wishing you all just fantastic rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Baba. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you.
care.